did that, James.
Guys, how are we doing? Hope you're really good. So welcome to a second episode of Chewing the Fat. I've got another one of my guys coming on board who's volunteered to come and chat. And we're just going to chew the fat over development, the past, what we're trying to get up to, problems that we face. So yeah, welcome to the show, buddy. How's it going?
It's all good. It's all good. You?
I'm good. Just for the guys listening, will you just give like a 30-second intro, who you are, where you are, what you do, etc.
Okay. I'm Russell Samuel. I'm living in Cumbria, in Brampton in Cumbria. I work for Pirelli. I've been working with James and the community since the back end of autumn last year. I had a bit of a rough year, so I saw James's ads on Facebook, the 5-day challenge, and it started from there, and that's where I'm at. And I've subsequently done the 28-day challenge, and I'm currently working with the community and James, and it's going really well.
Good man, mate. Russell, it's great to have you on board, mate. So, how's the start of the year been for you?
Start of the year was slow, to be honest. Like I say, you've got to be honest about things sometimes. And coming off the back of Christmas break, you know, a bit lethargic, a bit sluggish. Did have my plans in place and everything else, but as in life, sometimes not everything hits the ground running. So not a great start with a chest infection as well, but things have come. Was it just
a chest infection that but did that just obviously knock you off kilt? Was there anything, was it just the overwhelm of Christmas, or just like the Christmas hangover, not as in booze hangover, but just the chaos and organisation? I always find that, I don't know about you, but when I come out of Christmas, I almost come out of Christmas hating it as much as I love it. Because I'm just like, literally, as soon as I like wake up on Boxing Day, I'm thinking, right, decks down. I sound like a right misery. I'm like, decks down, normality back to order, let's go. And obviously, I'm just somebody who struggles to relax, I think, a little bit, to switch off.
100%, James. Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I'm not a massive fan of Christmas myself, but I'm a father, got 2 girls. So I go above and beyond, really, my comfort zone at that time of year, which I don't really like, but I'm a bit of a Grinch. But, you know, it's for my kids, and it can be overwhelming. It can be sensory overload. And, you know, I'm quite happy when January comes round, it's all in the past then, back to chill, back to normal, and then I can crack on, really. So, yeah.
Nice. So, mate, what was childhood like for you? Like, if we went back, I was talking to Dean the other day, and we were talking about his childhood. It was really fascinating about how he like bounced around a lot because his parents worked in different pubs. So it's very much like the military, you know, you get a posting every 2 years. What was yours like?
My childhood, I would say, up until I moved from South Wales to Cumbria, was amazing. I was a very happy young boy, you know what I mean? I loved where I lived and everything else. And then we moved up here, and I totally didn't want to. So it was a massive upheaval for an 11-year-old boy with my dad's work. And then ultimately, my dad left my mum, and my mum was left to raise us kids. So I lost my father figure, and I was uprooted from where I was happy, and you know what I mean, and everything else, where in South Wales. And I was bullied as a young boy, different accent, new kid on the block in a village. And yeah, it was hard, financially, emotionally. I didn't have a father figure, stability had gone, the comfort of, you know, the provision of 2 parents gone. My mum had to step up. So yeah, in all honesty, it's like 2 halves. The first half, very happy, fond memories. From the teens onwards, very hard. I had to find my feet, toughen me up, and some tough times. Yeah.
So when you moved at 11, I'm guessing like you had your circle of friends and your best friends, mate, like, you know, just at that time. And obviously, I bet that was heartbreaking. Just the thought of, I was thinking about when my 2 were 11, if I moved them away, like how devastating that would probably be for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're everything to you at that age, right? So when your dad left, did you really understand what was happening? How long into like having after that move did he move away or leave home?
maybe a couple of years tops, to be honest. You know, it didn't take too long. And then he left, started a family up with someone else, and we broke contact with us, really. So it was just like a complete disconnect.
Was it just sudden, just like that?
I don't think it was just like that, James. I think it was obviously behind the scenes. As a kid, you don't know the full story. You get the gist of the tension in the house.
Yeah.
You know, he was very much a man's man, and we were very much on eggshells around him. So I think it was behind the scenes, a slow burn. And in the end, what happened. And then it was like, right, Dad's gone, and we've got to, you know, survive, get on with it. And this is the reality now, basically.
So difficult for a young boy, so confusing already as it is, right? Like, I often see my boy who, like, he's 15 at the minute, but I can see there is such complexity to his life, even though he, like, who am I? Where's my stance? Where's my ego? Where's my positioning? And I think it, you know, when you lose I lost my dad when I was 6. I'm sure you know the story anyway. And I've got, like, one of my big fears is that something would happen to me now, and he'd be left in that limbo at 15, and the girl's so young, and my daughter at 17, and it's just, God, it's terrible. So, like, in terms of, obviously, for you growing up, for your teens and going into young adulthood, how do you think that affected you not having that father figure around? In what ways?
Yeah, it did affect me in the respect that I don't believe I had the guidance of a strong man in my life as such, in that respect. So I think deep down, and to this day, it has left scars, and it has left me with a bit of a conflicted mindset on what it is to be a man, a father, somebody finding their own place and space in the world, really. So for me, what I did was I took that, and I suppose I've utilized that kind of pain, that experience, and I've challenged it into my life now as a father, as a man. And I can be there for my children and show up. And for me, that is pivotal. So I took a negative and utilized it into a positive.
Oh,
so I don't have a blueprint to be a father and a man, but I created that myself. But it would have been nice to have had that to guide me and show me through, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's like our logo, isn't it? It's like lead you to lead them, like very much that mantra. But you said it, I was going to suggest this, but you said it, it's taking your pain and turning it into power. And you almost went through that experience to now see how although you weren't specifically led, the situation has led you to making sure that you show up, right, to be that leader, to be that dad, to be that man, you know. And I often think about, like, the hardship of losing my dad so young, but then having to endure an emotional bully stepfather until I was old enough to stand up for myself. And I think I look at that situation, and I think there's an element in what I do in terms of, God, I would hate for young kids to lose their dads, right, through suicide or strokes or heart attacks, or, you know, or just lose themselves. And I feel like as fathers, we have this unbelievable potential to create the next generation of kids, right? In terms of, I don't want peoples that I work with, kids, to then grow up and be lost and confused. I want men to be a big, strong role model, that leader. And I don't mean like the good old days, like back in the mines, right? But I mean teaching our kids how to be emotional, how to understand our emotions, understand what's right and wrong, how to stick up for ourselves, you know, and talking about work ethic, etc. So listening to you there, and the work that we've done and you've done in yourself as well, that's incredible to listen to, and I'm sure that people will listen will really take heed from that. So here's an interesting question. So in your mind, how do you define masculinity?
Right. Good question. And like you say, we just touched on it there. I don't believe masculinity in this day and age is that throwback to, you know, the big butch strong guy not showing his feelings. I don't believe that at all. I believe masculinity in this day and age is a man who will show his feelings and emotions, is prepared to show up, is prepared to play with his kids on the floor, and is also prepared to pick them up, throw them about, shows his strength, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. And for me, that's what a man is in this day and age. And for me, that's what masculinity is. It's not about the stereotype of years gone by. We've had to evolve and move with the time. So I believe masculinity in this day and age is somebody that men, women, kids look at, respect, and say, that guy's on point with how things are these days and how he needs to be and how he needs to really show up, really, as a worker, a father, a man, a human, a role model, all those things. That's my definition of masculinity, and that's what I try to aspire to pretty much every day in all aspects of my life, really, in a nutshell.
And in theory, what you have just stated is all of your values and principles,
Yes.
like that you value, right? That are attached to that.
Yes.
And and what you were saying at the very start, in terms of how masculinity has maybe evolved, I think 10 years ago, there used to be one umbrella that kind of everyone tried to squeeze underneath, right? To have that masculine, that ego, like, you got to be the breadwinner, you got to be this, and I still think that there is that stigma in society. Still, I think people base their own actions, values, and principle based on that one umbrella. But I think when you look at it now, there are multiple coloured and patterned umbrellas, with
Yes.
each with their own different sense of what masculinity it was. So if I was to ask 10 guys after you what it was, I think there would be some level of alignment, but there is some level of also disconnect. And we're all different, right? So we all have and it's based from, you and me have a very similar background in terms of maybe not really having a strong father figure. And so we're very aligned in what our values and principles are as masculinity. Whereas somebody, I don't know, who maybe started work at 14 with their dads down the mines, might think of it completely different, right? 100%. And that's where we got to understand each other, I think moving forward. So so family wise, you've got two girls.
Yes, two girls. Yep.
Girls, and how old are they?
They're 15 and 7.
Wow. So how do you find coping with a 15-year-old and a 7-year-old?
That knowing laugh says that you know the answer to that one already, James. But yeah, the 15-year-old, I've got to be honest, since she's hit her teens, has been a literal nightmare. Hormones, all that stuff. We've been through a lot of testing times with her, with a lot of things that is quite common with young girls these days, unfortunately. Self-harm, body dysmorphia, you know, the internet and all that stuff, and socials, and you know what I mean, it's all very hard on a young woman, young girl coming through. But luckily I've got a good relationship with my daughter, so she often talks to me, I'll listen, I'm quite laid back, and I give advice, and I'll give her a hug, I tell her I love her, I tell her I've always got her back, and first and foremost I always tell her that I'll never leave her. So as what happened to me, I assure her, because she knows the story, that will not be repeated. So I've broken a cycle. My 7-year-old, she's just at that beautiful age. You know, yesterday I had a school teacher was on strike, and I had her for the day, and she just lights up my life. You know what I mean? So yeah, I love them both to bits. They both bring different things to the table, but I was never really that paternal a person, but I wouldn't change it. Yeah, it's great. Best job in the world.
It's a never-ending job of curveballs. It's like, I always look at so I've got 4, and what you're going through with your daughter is exactly what we went through. All of those things that you spoke about, everything, and she come back at 15. Actually, she grew up very quickly when me and my wife divorced, and yeah, so she's a little bit ahead of her time. And then It's interesting the difference between the girls and then bringing up, I've got one boy, bringing up that boy as well, in difference in terms of communication and language and it's very interesting when the 15-year-old starts to build up confidence to want to confront, and you then having to manage that ego as well. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think I think it's an interesting challenge as a parent when you come up against stuff. It's like I say to you, all of you guys in our community, everything's a test. Everything's a test of our emotions. It's a test of our decision making. It's a test of our composure and our calmness, and it's a test of everything we've learned, right? So, and I always come to my mantra, I'll be honest, over the years we've been building this, we've come up with different ones, and I always think the best one that describes what we're trying to do for men is lead you to lead them. So anything you say, you've got to think as a leader, right? As a parent, for sure. Yep. Definitely.
100%.
So what do you do for hobbies? What do you kind of do for sports? What do you kind of do to keep yourself? What do you do for you?
For me, James, I live in a beautiful neck of the woods here, just on the foothills of the North Pennines. So there's fells, forests, tarns, ponds, rivers, just out in the country. So it's beautiful. That's great for me. And it's really good for my mental health, for my well-being. So the walks and the nature, that's all tied in with my passions. I very much like combat sports, a lot of MMA and stuff. So I know you like your jiu-jitsu and your MMA and all that stuff. So that kind of stuff. I like seeing family and friends. I like the personal development side of things that I do. Like today, I'll just go around litter picking, trying to give back to the community. I'm trying to do things that's of value, that it gives me something, but it's mainly giving something. It's if I can do things for like charities, for the community, for my family or friends, I get a lot from that. So
why is that important to you?
It's important to me because this gives me something, so I want to give something back. And that's what I believe life is about, that it's not about take. For me, I've always been, I'm no Samaritan. I'm no I don't never want to be on a pedestal or anything like that. I don't do things for gratification or validation from people as such. If people appreciate what I do, then fantastic. But ultimately,
it makes you feel good.
Yeah, it is. And that's my juice, really. That's what gets me up, is that when I go to work, I do it for my kids, to provide for them. When I go out and do things, whatever, I've done lots of charity events in the past. It's giving back to charities, like when we did the charity walk, you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff I take from that. That gives me purpose, and it gives me that degree of satisfaction. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but fulfillment is hard to come by these days, I think, in terms of, because we're moving so far. I'm really interested in, like, when you joined us, what you were going through at the time to make you feel like you needed to come in and work with us.
Yeah. So do you want me? Sorry, what was?
Yeah. So in terms of that question, is like, what were you going through at that time in your life that made you feel like I need to do some work on myself? Like, because talking to you, you sound like you're the amazing byproduct of, I think, of all the work that you've done on yourself through our programs and through the accountability, by being in the community. Like, listening to you, man, you're just a great byproduct of the work that we do. But I'm wondering, it probably hasn't always been like that for some reason, because you've come into our world for some reason. So I'm kind of wondering what was happening at the time to make you feel like you needed to come in.
Okay, JB. Basically, for the last couple of years, I've had a lot of work-related stress, and obviously I've had a bit of stress with my eldest daughter. So in July last year, I had 2 bleeds on the brain, subarachnoid hemorrhages. I had a double bleed at work, and it happened like that. The only thing I can describe it is, must be like being shot in the head, basically. And everything goes, the multitude of symptoms. It's not good. And I went to A&E, and I had to go to RVI in Newcastle in the end to get assessed. But at the time, I didn't know what was going on. And it was quite a concern, to the point where I'd sent texts to my girls' mums to say, I could be having an aneurysm. There's something going on that's really bad that they can't totally see into yet. The CT scans and stuff. And at that point was the worst, because I didn't know if I was going to live or not. I wasn't sure. And obviously with having kids, you know, I was totally in pieces. But in a weird way also, I was kind of quite calm and accepting of things, and it was like, okay, I'll deal with this. So I went through a hard rehab after that. There was, you know, a lot of headaches, a lot of symptoms that came with it. I had to build myself back up. And when I saw your ads on Facebook for the 5-day challenge, I was in a shit state at the time, and I thought, these guys are doing like marathons and shit. I can't do any of that, you know. But I thought, it's not about that. It's about that.
100%.
And I thought, right, I'm going to do it. I can't do what these guys are doing, but I'm going to do what I can.
Yeah.
And I thought, accept the position and push and move forward. And I thought, no matter what, even when you're on your ass, I had 2 beautiful reasons to pick myself up. Yeah. And I had a picture that my mum brought me in hospital that kept me going, of my 2 girls. And that's all I needed.
Amazing.
Then I worked with you, and you were the catalyst for the fire, the fuel, all that stuff that we talk about always,
to
kick on. And it gained momentum, and I really embraced it. And I had to look at myself, my failings, the procrastination, the honesty that we talk about, looking in the mirror. And I had to say to myself, you let yourself get to this. You know what I mean? They got to you, but you let them get to you, like work and managers and the rat race and all that shit.
Yeah.
So in the end, I thought, right. And that was it then. I thought, it's time to work. It's time to push on. And I need someone to give me that, which you did.
Amazing.
And the community has, and the support, and, you know, the yoga, the workouts, the things that came with it, you know, the support from John Talbot and other guys, you know, just listening to other guys go through similar, worse, less stuff, whatever. We're all in the same boat. And that's what brought me to here. And now it was do or die. And I'm a swimmer. I'm not a sinker. I've always fought, and I've hit dips in my life. This was probably the worst. And I had numerous other things happening that year as well that were worse, like a near fatal car crash. I lost my granddad. I split with my partner who got long COVID. And then I had the bleeds on the brain. So I was like, okay, you've had a shit year, but you're still breathing. They're still fighting you. So do something about it. So for me, I'm quite that person that it was like, right, you know, you came in and helped me, and you met me halfway, I met you halfway. And even though I was on my ass, I still had something in the tank, and I've built myself up again. And I'm not the finished product, because like you've talked about, it can take a good 12 months plus, and I'm maybe 6 months into it. But I've noticed changes and differences, and I've got to give myself props for that. The 1%, that's what's made the difference. And I'm not the finished article. And like you say, you never will be, because it's always, but I accept that. And that's the key, is to accept you're not as bad as you are. Things aren't as bad as it is, or you think it is. And all I needed to do was just give myself a bit of props, because I don't think I was as bad as I thought I was. And going through this process and this work, when you realize in yourself that you are worth more than you see yourself, that's when you get that empowerment. And that's when you start to really have a realization that you're worth more than the sums of what you think you are. And that's the realization that's really through the, you know, it's good, the CBT techniques. I believe in the power of CBT, and, you know, that side of things that you bring to the table works more for me than the physical, because my battle is always here. For a lot of men, it is.
Yeah.
It's the chimp. It's you know, it's all that. But, you know, the fight's with myself. But I'm starting to meet myself on a more even ground now than I did before.
Mate, you should be sitting here. Mate, if that doesn't inspire guys, like I don't know what will. I was like listening to you, and I've literally enthralled in that story, and some of the things you were saying is like incredible. The narrative has changed. Like I can imagine, like the narrative has definitely changed. I always kind of, in the center of the earth, obviously we've got our like core, and I think we've always got one of those in our brain. And the whole point of the rewiring process, and it's interesting some of the things that you have about the first perceptions of coming into this. It's like, oh, they're all running marathons, and actually it's got nothing to do at all physically. Even the physical challenge that we do on the 5-dayer is not about the physical. It's about how do you handle hardship? How do you overcome those, that being out of your comfort zone? How do you handle doing something you haven't done for a while? Yeah. And I think like listening to you is incredible, because you're just, your dialogue, your narrative, everything is aligned. And of course we evolve because we get tested in different ways, right? There are the hardship doesn't just go. The way that we condition it and handle it and manage it and master it does change. That's what we do for that work. So great bit. So for you, mate, in terms of like the future and outcomes and things that you're looking at, what's on your mind? Where you thinking your life's going?
Well, at the moment, you know, pretty happy with things in general. I'm not in a career that I'm happy with, which I am looking at other things, and I have been obviously taking on board Pamela Langdon advice and your advice and stuff like that. So I am looking at other things in that respect. The future, it's really hard to kind of foresee. So I am making like my quarterly plans, my monthly plans, my weekly plans, and for this year I have made plans. I'm trying to stick to them and aim for things. I just want to see my girls grow up. That for me is my focus, my drive, as I'm sure it is with most people, but that is a good thing to center yourself on. Certainly with what I went through, it's like a second chance. So I'm utilizing that. So, you know, for me, it's just seeing my girls grow, hopefully to meet somebody again, a partner, you know, to have that again, to do more charity work. I had signed up for Mount Snowdon in May for the Alzheimer's Society, because my granddad passed with dementia and Alzheimer's. Unfortunately, that got cancelled. So now I'm going to have to look at something else. Yeah. But that's what I'm looking for in the future, is to have things to look forward to. I have things I want to do in life, kind of like a bucket list, you know, like yourself, you know, you want to travel and stuff with your family, you know. So I have, you know, similar ideas, similar wants and drives, and those are the things that I'm pushing towards and going to try and make happen, you know, with a positive mindset, but not stress myself out over it if it doesn't happen, you know. And so, you know, just a positive mindset to try and, you know, carry on with being a dad, trying to maybe reevaluate my career and look at other options and travel, you know, just stuff like that, really.
Good stuff. I love it. So we always want to close the show with a bit of a tradition. It's only the very start of this particular phase of the show. And if we had a third guy joining us in here now, and you could only give him one piece of advice, what would it be?
Is that a life kind of hack advice, or is it like?
So he'd come in here and he just one piece of advice or guidance that you could give him based on your own experience and what you've gone through to help him progress.
Good question. And I would say, if I could give a piece of advice, is that value yourself more than what you think you're worth. And I think if you can do that and work on that, I think overall as a person, you would probably fare a lot better in life if you give yourself that respect, that pat on the back, that acknowledgement that you're worth more than the sum of the parts that you think you are. There's a huge difference. That's the advice I would give. It's not an easy one to just have like that. It takes work, but that's my advice.
Well, you just giving it to about 20,000 people, so you'll be there's a bit of advice more than just one person, mate. It's been a real great honor to have you on the show. I think Your story is incredible. I think where you are right now is incredible, you know, and I think it's about really making that stick. This is forever, you know, it's never over until it's actually over, as they say. But thank you for being on. Really appreciate it. Guys, if you really enjoyed the show, please let us know via the comments. Please let us know what you thought of the podcast. Please follow us if you're not already following us. We've got many more conversations coming up with many more people with great stories. So we'll see you for the next time.